We are having now a great guest who you might already know. She's a Hackesche alumni who will be providing us very insightful tools through an interactive workshop today. So without further introduction, I leave Irene to take the lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome everyone. As you know, my name is Irene Silvera Frischknecht, and my preferred pronouns are she, they. I am a petite white woman in my 30s. I have short purple hair and I'm wearing a beige long sleeve shirt. Behind me there's a screen with a presentation around disability and inclusion. As Dominga said, I'm a freelance EDI consultant and trainer. And let me see if I can make this computer work. Yes, okay. I've been working in different areas of the film industry for 20 years now. And I have other non-visible disabilities. I'm having trouble with this. Okay, sorry. And at some point during this presentation, I might struggle with words. I might get a bit muddled up with words because I get nervous, or I might, hopefully not, my mind might go blank. It happens sometimes. Please bear with me. Anyway, let's start. So before we get into the heart of the discussion today, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of creating a safe space for everyone here in this room. We're a community brought together by a shared interest. And for any community to thrive, you need understanding, you need respect and trust. So today, we're going to be engaging in some meaningful dialogue and sharing certain ideas that, that could be challenging. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page in terms of everyone hearing each other, understanding value and respecting everyone's opinion, even if they're different. Feel free to express yourself without fear of reprimand, or reprisal, or judgment. That's all I wanted to say. Like, please be compassionate. And that's all. So the objective of this short introduction is to raise awareness about the importance of accessibility in cinemas and provide a few simple practical strategies for making your cinemas a little bit more inclusive for people with disabilities. So we'll be focusing mostly on disabilities today. I mean, mostly, completely. So these two words, accessible and inclusive, can sound a bit scary, like Sebastian said earlier, like they're quite serious, they're heavy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that they're not nuanced, intersectional, and complex topics, but I'm going to try to make them as easygoing as possible today. We're not going to delve really deep. We just want to find some tips to make things a little bit easier for everyone in your cinema. Let's see what we can do. So I guess we have people, I can see we have people from different countries here today. And I am aware that disability laws and culture and attitudes and language around disability will be different for each of you in your respective countries. I won't be touching on that. I'll be just focusing on the way I see it and the way I'm living it in the UK, where I live right now in London. It might be different in your countries. Just wanted to know that. Feel free to make any comments or let me know. Yeah. So I think the one thing we do have in common is that we all believe that Arthouse cinemas are more than a place where we just screen. We screen films, right? I think we can agree on that. We believe they're community hubs, they're places in which we can enrich the cultural landscape of our local community, provide audiences with unique and diverse cinematic experiences. So why is it essential to consider those two big words, accessibility and inclusion, in our cinema? Hello. The reason is because we want to create an environment where everyone, I mean everyone, can fully enjoy the cinematic experience equally. So yeah, I just wanted to note that according to the European Council, 27% of the EU population over the age of 16 has some form of disability, and that's a large percentage of our audience. So I think we really do need to keep this in mind. Because it accounts for 1 in 4 of us, and at some point in our lives, any of us might have a temporary disability or a chronic one. So, yeah, that's why it's so important, I believe. So what counts as, I'm just briefly going to touch on what counts as disability. And just give you a quick definition of disability. This is again from the UK perspective. So they would define it, a rough definition would be a disability is a condition of the body or mind that makes it more difficult for the person to carry out day-to-day activities and interact with the world around them. So some of you might, I mean, are there any questions at this point, by the way, like around disabilities or anything? Okay. So yeah, it's more difficult than the average or typical experience, let's say. This can include chronic conditions, chronic health conditions, cancer, for instance, diabetes is a disability as well. There's a great number of non-visible disabilities. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. So I just wanted to open the floor quickly and see if you'd like to share any examples of disability inclusion provision that you do in your cinema already, or that you've noticed in cinemas you've attended. Would you like to share any examples?
I mean, at the very, very first step that we did at York was just listing all the kind of steps and barriers, and if you have level access to an auditorium or to the entrance itself and stuff like that. And obviously the goal is to make everything level and accessible, but just giving people the ability to anticipate what kinds of physical barriers they would need to cross to get to the auditorium or back home. Yes, in one. So it's for the screens themselves, but also in a central place listed like for every single one.
So you so you have an access page, and then individuals access information for each cinema.
Yes.
Something like that. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else, like any dedicated screenings, relaxed screenings maybe, or dementia-friendly, captioning?
Maybe this is not obviously from what would it be, but I think it's important to note that when you see websites that are readable, both through the contrast or through simplified text, or just by making sure that all the images have alt text describing the content for blind users of those sites. But this is more on a communication of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we will be touching on that as part of the tips that we'll be looking at later. Do you have any? Yeah. Let me get my phone so I know what time it is. Okay.
I think it's a general thing. If you disable and you need a person to assist, this person has free entrance, so you don't have to pay for the ticket. This is a general way in Germany to propose something for these people, but it's difficult because if you don't have to pay, so you cannot pay online. So you have to ask in the movie theater, or you have to write an email, and you have an extra way to get this ticket. So we really try to work on it to find an easy way for these people. And we had no conclusion yet, so we propose an alternative way. So we said, okay, you can have 2 tickets for a lower price, because it's easier. You like to be nice, but in the same time, you create an extra way and more difficult actually for these people.
In the UK, there's this scheme called CEA card. So you sign up, you pay £6 for a year, I think, and you get a reference number. And with that card, in most cinemas, you can get a +1 for free. So you still pay for your ticket, but you get a companion ticket. Oh, okay, yeah. But then again, so this is a good idea because it's a general, like a centralized, general nationwide scheme. But then I have noticed that on some websites, they do have trouble with when you're entering the patron number and things like that. So ideally, I think the solution would be to have something that's like global, common to all cinemas in the same country, or maybe the EU or something like that. But yeah, that's a really good example of accessibility provision. Anyone else want to share?
Yes, I just wanted to share an experience that we had in Hungary. A couple of years ago, we had a project with Bulgaria, Croatia, and Slovenia, and part of the project was a kind of a co-creation workshop, which means there was a film screening and a discussion for the disabled audience, and I just realized that I learned a lot from these audience because the way they were affected by the films that they watched and their reactions was very sensitive, and I learned a lot then from the regular audience. And if everything goes well, from the second half of the year, we are going to be involved in a project coordinated by a Polish cinema, and it's going to be called Cinema Without Barriers. So I'm really looking forward on the experience, how to especially focus on the blind and the hearing impaired. So I guess there is so much to learn on this field.
Yes. Oh, I'd love to hear more about that later, or if you want to share with all of us. It's a very. I mean, I'm constantly learning. Obviously, I'm trying to research and and learn as much as possible myself. But it's there's so much to do, and there's so much to to tackle and to learn. It's a very, very broad subject. Thank you. Oh, yeah, another question.
There was one first here.
Oh,
I
sorry.
think. Yes.
Hi. I wanted to say one thing about the extra ticket for disabled people, because we in our cinemas, we do it that they send us their information, and we verify it, and then we give them access to buy it for themselves, but it's only for our cinemas. So, another thing, we are trying to do a program that is for people with hearing difficulties and blind people, but we're finding it difficult to wie sagt man denn umsetzen? To implement, to get access to the version files, for example, with subtitling for people with hearing difficulties. And so I think we are not, it's really hard because we don't have the material we need to provide a program like this. But yeah, in the future, that's the plan.
And you're based here in Germany? I mean, I would have to, I don't know about any schemes here. I'm trying to create, by the way, a database with all the information I can. I'm starting with UK, EU, so yeah, so I could create a resource that everyone can access and find information around funding, associations, production companies, anything. So if you want to contribute to that, please email me. See, I'm blank. My mind went blank.
No, actually, it's really interesting because in Chile there is a very good initiative, the Film Fund, pretty much forces every producer that wants to make a film to release the film in theaters, both with audio descriptive and descriptive subtitles. So when you are a producer and you apply to the fund, you need to consider in your budget the translations, you need to consider the whole inclusive language description and subtitles, and then you need to have a certain amount of screenings specifically for the subject, which is, I believe, is a great. Otherwise, you're not qualifying for the fund.
Yeah, I think that would be the best case scenario if it would be mandatory. And also, I don't have the article here, but I think it was on The Guardian. I can send it to you when I send the resources later. I think around 40% of people now use captions. I do myself, like I find it so much easier, whether they're hearing impaired or not, or just have hearing sensory differences. So I think that's a market and an issue to definitely like look into for the future. And so on what you were saying, I can't see you now, but with the big light, but at least in the UK, there is an initiative. It's a website where all the films that do have captions and subtitles are listed. So I wonder if there's something similar here or
yeah, so we have the same thing, German movies that are here.
Sorry.
That get funding have to have descriptions, audio and written. But they use usually an app that's called Greta. So they it's not, I think at least it's not available usually for the screen.
I see.
But it's not the same to have a cell phone and read it from there and keep looking at the image then.
Yeah, not everyone might have a cell phone with internet connection and fast enough, and not very accessible.
Yeah, thank you, Christo. Nice to meet you. Thank you for organizing the event. So 2 things I want to share. First is that Sofia Film Festival, actually one of the partners, I think, for this project, started creating content for visually impaired people. And the films are ready, so they have been screening for a few years after they were adapted. And second thing is, at our cinemas, very often during festivals or special events, we invite disabled people as volunteers. And it works amazingly. For example, checking tickets and that kind of simple tasks where they feel super valuable and seen as well, included.
There is this saying, again in the UK, what can I say? And I'm sure it's worldwide, that says nothing about us without us, or which means that if you're having a conversation about disability, you should also include disabled people for sure in the conversation. And I will say it later, but I think one of the most valuable resources any cinema has is the feedback from their own audiences. If you just show them that you're keen to hear what they have to say, what they think could be improved. It could be little things that we'll see later. It could be very, very little things that could make things easier for them. Don't underestimate the power of feedback from your audiences. Just remind them that you want to listen. But we'll look at that later. Thank you so much for sharing all these. I wasn't expecting so many. I'm just going to briefly touch on something that's called the social model of disability, but because I feel like I have to, I don't know if this is because of my training or I think it's important because it sort of changes your perspective. I'm sure everyone here already has a similar perspective anyway, but it's good to see it in a very simplistic way. So this is such a simple example, so easy. You'll find it a bit too easy, I'm sure. So social model of disability is one of the models. There used to be, there's other models of disability. In the past, there was a charity model, which is the model in which you sort of feel like, disabled people are defenseless, or they need to be saved, or they need to be cured. thought it went. And, you know, they need charity from you. They need your support. And then later, I mean, this is very vaguely, very rough timing. There was the medical model, which is based only on, mainly on diagnosis. So it would focus a lot on the medical diagnosis and the physical and mental symptoms and signs of disability. And now I would say that the point we're at and what the consensus on what the best model is right now is the social model. What do you think? So this lady here wants to go to your local cinema. She wants to see Anatomy of a Fall. I just chose that one, I don't know why. And because she's read some excellent reviews on Letterboxd, and she's like, yeah, I want to go see that film. She's checked on Google which one's her local cinema, Arthouse Cinema, and she's found yours. And you're showing the film. Excellent. So she's coming to see you, and she's finding an issue. She can't attend the screening. So it's a very simple question I'm going to ask you. What do you think is the problem here? Is it the fact that the lady is in her wheelchair, or the fact that there's a set of steps at the entrance of your cinema, and that's the only way to access the cinema? The reason I'm still touching on this, gosh, there you go. It's because it's a matter of perspective. So in the social model of disability, it's not that people are disabled by their the best way to say it would be that it's a perspective that emphasizes how societal barriers and attitudes contribute to the experience of disability rather than the other way around. So it's that people are disabled not by their impairments or differences, but by the barriers imposed on them by society. So it was a very silly example, but then you can apply that sort of thinking to any situation, really. So that's why I still wanted to touch on it. So let's have a look at a few tips. My motto is that if you show that you're implicated and you want to remove barriers and you want to hear from your audience, disabled audience, and create an accessible and inclusive cinema experience for everyone, that is the most valuable and essential tool that you have. Whether you have issues with accessibility that have to do with the building, like this building here has a lot of stairs and steps, and that's something that you cannot change. But if you still make an effort to show that you have an accessibility statement, that you have, you're willing to make changes, that I think that's the most important thing. And that's why I just wanted to give you a couple of very quick tips. So starting with digital practice, so the website, for instance, including an access page with information, like Marvin said, around your building, how to navigate it, a map maybe. Then you could have like transport links, information about like if you can park your bike or if you can park your car, for instance. Maybe I'll show you, then another thing you can do is test your website. There are accessibility checkers that you can use online. Some of them do cost money, but otherwise you can just look at the guidelines. There's like global guidance on how to make a website accessible, and I'll send you that link as well. And then other things that are very easy and that don't require any tools at all, and things like Boglarka was mentioning earlier, is to make your website easy to navigate with menus, make it as clear as possible, use a color scheme that is readable for all users. That's what she was talking about, the contrast, for instance. Make sure that there's enough contrast and that the size of the font is big enough for people to read, like if they have any visual impairments. And then include captions in your videos, not just for hearing impaired, but also, as I said, like most people now use captions. And then there's, like, for instance, with TikTok, you tend to sometimes, there's this trend to watch things maybe without sound, and then you actually rely on the caption. So it's a good idea to do that. And another thing is to offer alt text image descriptions for visually impaired visitors on all of your social media, on your website. And this is easily done just by clicking on the image, and all platforms have an implemented way to do so. Marketing materials, so again, it's very similar. Little things that you can do, and make sure the contrast is at least 25%, avoid putting text over images, make clear and short paragraphs, use simple language, make sure that, you keep your, where am I? Avoid glossy paper, because that is reflective and it's not, it makes it harder to read. Then you can use dyslexia-friendly fonts. These are also available online for free. You can download font packs, or there's a number of fonts like this one, Calibri, that I'm using here, that are dyslexia-friendly because they're of the way they're designed. There's other tools for free as well, like you can check the reading age in Microsoft Word. I'll send you the information on how to do that. And that is to make sure that anyone, regardless of their age or whether they speak your language, what level of language they have, they understand the basics of what you're trying to tell them. So it's really, really important. And yeah, things like explain abbreviations the first time you use them. So for instance, BSL, British Sign Language, first time always use the full sentence. So these are very basic things that you can already apply without spending any money and without using any external tools. And you're already making it so much easier for people. And then other things, I think the most important thing would be to self-assess your cinema. So in all areas, not just the outreach. So just have a think about everything from the booking process. So booking, like, do you know how to respond to access requirements? Are you providing any concessionary rates? Do you have any schemes in place, for instance? In terms of the venue, just maps and information on how you can get there. Can you get there inside without assistance? Are there any steps? And if there are, it's fine, just list them. Like, it's what it is. Like, you can only change certain things. Other things like, do you provide any facilities for disabled visitors? And things like that. And signage is very important. It's important that it's clear, in good contrast, and large enough to see from a distance. It's important that it's consistent, that it's not obstructed, that the emergency exits are easy to find. So these things, again, very basic, but so useful for everyone, disabled or not. Things like the toilets that are well signaged, are they regularly maintained? Are they kept locked, the accessible toilets? It's important because if someone has to ask for the key, that's something that they need to know. That's another level of, another barrier that you're imposing. Is it used for any other purpose? Sometimes you have an accessible toilet, but then it's also like the baby changing room. So just making these things clear is important. Things like the breakout areas, you could offer, like quiet zones or breakout areas. You should consider like whether your counters are out of reach or not, like what height they are. Is there a waiter service available at the cafe? Can you provide water for assistant dogs? So all these little things you can list, and you're already showing that you have an interest in including everyone. what else do we have here? Sorry, that light is like blinding me. Yeah, I think we've touched on most of them. And then the mega top tips. Yeah, I know, very, very professional. Don't know how else to put it. It's like the idea that what I think are the most essential ideas to take away is one is training, like always train everyone in your team about disability inclusion. Oh, I've lost my notes. Yeah. If you don't train everyone, all of these access provisions will be useless. You need to train, but when I say everyone, I mean from the projectionist to any freelancers that may come in to the janitor, because if they don't know why things are in place and in a certain way, they, you know, they might change them. So it's important that everyone is on board, so that you provide training to everyone. You know, you can find easily online free training, as I'm sure, for your team, and you can create like a workshop yourself, or you can bring someone in to do that. Hey. Another very important thing is to never make assumptions. I find this personally a lot, like here at the Berlinale, I have an access pass, which just means it has a green sticker. And it's happened a few times already that, so with, here at they have quite a good access scheme. I'm very impressed. So for instance, with that card, you're able to join like an early queue. I can't remember, they have a specific early boarding, they call it. So you can join the a queue, so you don't have to queue with everyone else, which can be overwhelming. But then the first time I used it, I was at the Verti and I showed my badge. There was a long queue of people. I was 1 hour early, and there were a queue of 3 people in a wheelchair. And I showed them my badge to the security people from the Berlinale, and they were really, really baffled, like, what do you want? And I'm like, I just want to join the accessibility queue, you know, that queue. And they were just looking at me like up and down and like, what? So they called the venue coordinator, and yeah, even they didn't know how to like react in this situation, because clearly I don't have any visible disabilities. I don't have any walking aids. I present the way I do. So yeah, I don't make assumptions about anyone. Yeah, there's so many non-visible disabilities. Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Then continue to reassess accessibility provision. Language, culture, attitudes change a lot very quickly in this area. So it's important to always review and test yourself. I was supposed to have my laptop, but I forgot the cable, even though I brought 3 of the same one. But I got the wrong one this morning. I was going to show you how you can test yourself even with your laptop. Like if you use the accessible tools, then you can see like if it's readable or not. You can just ask it to read it for you. There's a lot of tools. Even Canva, which is what I use to create this presentation. For each slide, you can check if it's accessible or not. I mean, it won't be probably the most comprehensive, but it's something that you can do. And as I said earlier, super important to ask feedback from the audience and the team. Gosh, I'm thirsty. Sorry. And finally, no, that one's fine. Thank you. I think it's really important to remember that accessibility and inclusion don't only apply to your patrons and to the audience, but also to your team. So you have to allow for adjustments within your team as well, and don't make any assumptions about your team either, and listen to what they have to say as well. So yeah, those are like my, how many? Like 5 most important tips, I'd say. So now I would like to do, we have time? Let me see. Okay, I just wanted to do a really, really quick activity. So just asking you to gather in groups of 2 or 3 if you're up for it. and just take 5 minutes to explore the cinema we're at right now. You can do it from your seat. You can just look up at the website and or like just remember what it was like when you walked up here, or what marketing materials you saw. Or you can go outside to the foyer and have a look. Foyer, how do you say that? And have a look at what materials they have available, and just think about any improvements or any things that you could see that could be easily made, that we could suggest the team here at the what's the name? Hackesche Höfe Kino. So if you want to take just 5 minutes to look at the website online, for instance, the only thing, please don't mention, I mean, you can mention it, but obviously we know there's a lot of stairs. It's not wheelchair accessible. And I read on their website that they have been trying to install a lift for 20 years. And because of the building being listed, it's not been possible due to like local regulations. So yeah, that one's the very obvious one. But if you can just have a look around and see what little things you could already improve, that would be great. I'll see you in 5 minutes. So 11:25. Yeah, I think we're ready. Would anyone like to share any findings or anything they've seen or noticed?
Okay, so I was just trying to find information about accessibility, and it's only in the German version and only refers to Greta and Stark's app. So no form of other disability than hearing impairment is being addressed on the website already as information.
And as you say, it's only in German, although they do have an option to switch to English. Sorry? Oh, really? I saw it here. No, yeah. The English version does not comprise the whole website. Okay, yes. Was it heavy? There you go. Yeah, so, this is what they have. They mentioned the issue with the stairs, and the Greta app and the Sennheiser Connect. But yeah, that's all that's mentioned. Anything else you'd noticed you'd like to share?
We thought that maybe the background and the writing of the yellow and white is maybe not so barrierefreundlich.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. Yeah, that's a very easy thing to change, right? You just need to perhaps write it in black, and maybe you need to do some design changes, but that's something, if you, from the beginning, you already brief your designer on, what that you want an accessible website, that makes it easier, and then these kinds of changes can be done hopefully easily later as well. Anything else that you've noticed? No? I wanted to show you actually like the Berlinale. This is me improvising, but they have such an interesting, for inclusion. They have really interesting wording, and I know this is film festivals and not cinemas, but it's a really good example. The way they phrase it. So they make emphasis on the easy to read signage. And where is it that they have a really good, here. The early boarding I was mentioning, for anyone who requires support. I mean, obviously this is the written word, and the way they use the language they use was really inclusive. So they were mentioning anyone who has, so that not just that has disabilities, but that has, for any reason, requires support, or has mental health. They called it mental health requirements. So with the early boarding, what they're saying is if you have anxiety, if you find that environment really stressful, you know, like there's, you know, they will make adjustments for you regardless of whether you consider yourself disabled or not, or whether you have a diagnosis of any sort. So I thought that was really interesting, but I'll send it to you when I send the resources. Cool. Yeah, we were at questions, comments, thoughts. Yeah, I just wanted to open the floor again to any more questions or thoughts, experiences, challenges that you face in your own cinema that you'd like to discuss. Something I did not mention earlier, and I should have put it on my 5, which now becomes 6, mega top tips. There's a lot of there's a lot of use local associations. There's if you want to include the disabled community, like a great way to do that is just being funny. It's fine. To contact and reach out to local associations and things that are around you, see what they are, and collaborate with them. I'm sure they can provide a lot of helpful information. Anyone want to share anything else or any questions so far? Oh,
well, just I guess 2 remarks. One is that for the first time in Amsterdam now, with their culture policies, they made this a condition of getting subsidies.
Yeah,
So, and I've learned in the past that sometimes the Netherlands or another country in Europe is the first one doing that, but then a lot will follow, because all these civil servants that are in art and culture on a national level or on local levels, working together with cities in other countries, they sort of adapt their policies. So that could be an interesting way of looking at it. The second is that, well, and of course this cinema is an example of that. And my cinema in Amsterdam too, that it was built in the 20s. And we got support by the city while renovating, adapting all kind of accessibility tools. But of course, there's always limitations in an existing building. And then I think it would make sense, like they do here, to be completely honest about it and communicate what you can deliver and what you cannot deliver. And then in the new cinemas we have created or will create, there we can adapt all the things that we cannot in an existing building. So sometimes it also actually is a good thing that you don't use an old building to restart the cinema, but to actually really start from scratch.
And then you will continue to find new things that you will need to change and new provisions that you can make. So yeah, it's, as you said, it's really important, I think, to be honest and to be clear. That's why I think having an access page is so important, not just for the information that it includes, but just as a sort of, what's the word, like declaration of intention. Is that a thing? I don't know. It's just like showing that you want to listen and that you care, and that you're aware of the limitations and you're willing to make adjustments within reason and within your capabilities. And hopefully, I've some even films now require that. Film festivals in Spain, for instance, I've been looking at that for funding. And then there's no training around it. People, from what I know in Spain, people are telling me, well, we don't know what to do about this. Like, we have to fulfill this requirement, but what does this mean? There's not enough training and awareness around that. And then lastly, I don't have slides anymore, but I just wanted to, before we leave, just ask you to just reflect a little bit on, it's gone away. It's fine. On like I know it's all been a bit modeled up, and it's a very, very complex topic. But if you have learned anything that you think you can change, at least if the most important thing I think is that you have that you have a new perspective, that you have like the perspective of wanting to question everything within your cinemas and every aspect of them, marketing, the venue itself, the website, anything, absolutely anything, question it and think about it from other people's perspective. So I just wanted to invite you to think about something that you'd like to change in your own cinema. Everything is about trying to make everyone's experience of life, of work, of the cinema, as full as possible, right? And as, equal as well. So instead of focusing on what diagnosis it is you have, or what, or what the challenges are, perhaps you could ask them, how they prefer to work to do their best. So there are tools. There's this one tool called AXS. It's available for anyone to use for free. It's fantastic. It's very basic, but I think that's what you need. Anyone can create it. Then you can just give your QR to anyone, and you can create different types of profiles. So for like a work environment, a friends or social environment, for events, whatever it is, travel. So you can state, and it gives you the tips already. So it's already populated. You don't have to come up with what adjustments you might need, because sometimes they ask you, do you have any accessibility requirements? And you're like, what do you offer? Like, I don't know. You don't know what to write. So this one already prompts you with some ideas. And it's not only for disabilities, it's just, maybe I prefer to work in silence or for most of the day and then have 1 hour of meetings. And this is how I perform my best. And you want me to perform my best, right? Or, any adjustment that you may need. I need to think of it in its cinema context, but breaks or anything that helps anyone. So I think it's just about starting that conversation and asking them how to make things easier for them, rather than what are your disabilities and so on. Yeah, so something like this would be useful. Sorry, I just went on and on.
Okay, so thank you very much, Irene, for this wonderful and insightful presentation.
Thank you.